Alright guys, welcome back to Marvel Ultimate Alliance. This is part number 39 and the first part that I've uploaded in a few months. And
you'll be traveling to the Shiar Empire for this next mission. It's located in a galaxy in another part of the
getting some plot points here.
Once
We've
there, you'll need to lay hands
basically
on a shard
Uatu
of
the
a
Watcher
grand
has saved us from being killed by Dr. Doom, which was nice of him. But I'm going to sort of ignore the story that's going on here right now in this cutscene.
You X-Men are pretty well connected.
But essentially, Uatu wanted to save the universe, and so he sees us as the way to do that. And that's fine, except that Uatu's promise reads a lot like the original Clash of the Titans from 1980, when Perseus goes to the three gray eye, the old women who only have an eye and a tooth and I think an ear amongst them that they all share.
What exactly is this Macran crystal?
And when he asks them, because of their great wisdom and because he's stolen all of their stuff, what he should do, his response is simple, or their response to the question, how does one defeat the Kraken? Particularly say, oh, well, to defeat the Kraken, you would need the head of the warrior, of the Gorgon Medusa.
There's been a coup.
But then they tell you that, going after the head of the Gorgon Medusa would actually be a harder thing to do than actually going after the Kraken himself. And basically, Uatu sends us on a very similar quest here. In order to gain the things that we would need to defeat Doom, we're going to actually have to do some things that might be just as dangerous as going up against Dr. Doom himself. So first off, we're going to this command ship in the Shiar Empire battle fleet in order to grab the Macran, piece of the Macran crystal, sacred Shiar Empire. They're just going to give, and the reason they're going to do that is because Lilandra, the Shiar Empire, is buddies. So she has she's just going to hand Lilandra. Also having some graphical gone through the process for months. Could be them just out of prisoner, basically overthrown by her, because except for him is that turns against them. And so now the Shiar Empire technically reports to Liland's sister, Deathbird, I think is her name. We'll end up fighting her. So we have to get this crystal, and of course we wanted to do that nice and easy by being nice and friendly with crystal anyway. Our team right now is as it's been throughout all these videos. We still got members missing at this point, and they're Spider-Man, America, and Venom. Venom, whose movie came out in October, and I enjoyed a lot, and I don't think I've done a video where I've actually talked about my feelings about that movie. Maybe that will come a or two down the road. There's just a lot of sort of Marvel stuff going on right now to point out. And the other character who's sort of running around with us at the moment is a guy by the name of Corsair. And again, this is a Marvel character who I don't know. This is the father of Cyclops and Havoc. So this is the patriarch of the Summers clan, in theory. So that's sort of catch you up with where we are in the game, and we're going to sort of move away from the game itself and get more into just what's going on, mainly in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Christmas I had a nice Christmas with my family. My sister and her husband were able to get into town, and it was nice having them around. And the benefit to me on a material level, other than just the niceness of having family and friends available, is that I got a few Marvel-related items for Christmas. So I got the paper trade version, the paperback trade version of Maximum Carnage, which I know some of you are going to be rolling your eyes, you know, when I say that. But Maximum Carnage for me, really a callback more to my childhood. In 1994 or 1993, when Maximum Carnage came out, the only way I was able to sort of keep up with Spider-Man at the time was because this was the year before the Spider-Man cartoon was about to take off. Was through the comic book offerings at the local grocery store. Now, you know, this was a local Harris Teeter. Of course, saying that in the city where I live, even then, there were way too many Harris Teeters, and now they're just as many as there were. They're just bigger, and they, you know, they're, I guess, more comprehensive. I mean, I'm not really sure how else to put it. But back then, back near where they would keep the soda, which was kind of cool because they kind of kept the soda like it was a big wine cellar, except it was all. And this was during the time when they had Crystal Pepsi, so there was some sort of interesting things to look at in the soda aisle. And I was 10 years old with an active imagination, so you know there was plenty of stuff going on. But one of the bad things about having an active imagination when you're 10 years old is that there are things that can be really scary that shouldn't be. And for me, Carnage was really scary when I was 10. And his brood of followers weren't much better. Of course, Spider-Man's band of allies that he has to form in you know, included people who weren't particularly that fun to look at either. If you think Morbius the Living Vampire, who was there. Deathlock's not... I mean, until you realize what Deathlock is, Deathlock, not the best looking character. And so when I was a kid, I would go to the grocery store with my dad. I would help him pick up stuff, and then with whatever time, if I could get done with my batch of stuff fast enough, I would go and find out what was going on in the comics. And so that introduced me to Maximum Carnage, and I saw the latter parts of the Maximum Carnage. I saw like parts 7 through 12 in brief, because I don't remember actually reading, because that would have taken time. I didn't have that much time. And I do remember part 13, because part 13's cover was just a head of Carnage with this big gaping black mouth. And Maximum Carnage was neat to me for a couple of reasons. First off, it was like one of the few ways that I actually had access to Spider-Man. I knew who Spider-Man was, but I didn't. The TV show wasn't a thing at the time, so it was just kind of Spider-Man was a cool character with the peer group. So, you know, liking's a good place to be when you were 10. Alright, it looks like we succeeded in their attempt to shove us out of the landing dock by craft. So, yeah, Avengers Infinity War, Eat Your Heart Out. This idea was older than that movie. Of course it was. It came from a Spider-Man reference to the movie Alien. Or was it Aliens? Another movie trilogy that I probably should have watched, but haven't. But, you know, it's just sort of a thing. But we were back talking about so to give you an idea of sort of the roundabout nature of reading Maximum Carnage, I was aware that Dagger died, and I was aware that Dagger came back. But I wasn't really aware of what Dagger's importance to the story was. But since Carnage seemed to have this woman who infused his team with power, Shriek, I figured that Dagger was the sort of trump card for the heroes in the same sort of way, even though I didn't understand why Spider-Man and Captain America would need a trump card necessarily. But, you know, I remember Carnage being frightening to a 10-year-old. I remember Shriek being pretty scary. I remember Demo Goblin. I actually don't remember the Spider Doppelganger, and considering Carnage just kills him without much effort late in the series, I guess I sort of understand how that worked. I didn't remember Iron Fist. I didn't really remember Deathlock. But I did remember Venom and Spider-Man teaming up, and Captain America being there at some point when Venom was not around. So I figured that, you know, this was Spider-Man trying to make up for the fact that he didn't have Venom, which I think is basically what sort of happens in the story. Maximum Carnage as a sort of fly-by-night read for a 10-year-old is cool because Spider-Man and Venom work together to beat up Carnage. And Venom, again, a character who I only knew through this very limited ability to get comics, or get access to comics. But I think the Spider-Man 375, you know, is where the comic where they decided Venom would turn good. In fact, I completely because I only saw a limited number of panels from that book, although I love the cover of that one. That's sort of what attracted me to Venom, was him on that cover. I misunderstood one of the because I didn't see very many panels. I think Spider-Man saves Venom's ex-wife in that story. But what I misunderstood was I made the false impression that Mary Jane Watson was Venom's ex-wife. And of course that would have that would have made for a rather weird story. Of course it's nothing, you know, in the way that the comics adapted, in the way that Spider-Man's evolution with the Venom symbiote has gone on, that and his relationship with Mary Jane had nothing to do with any of that. So, you know, when you're 10 years old and you see one panel and you get an idea. So now, you know, so for a while I was like, oh, well, Venom was mad at Spider-Man because Spider-Man stole his girl, except that never happened in any of the comics, because I kind of had to wonder, it's like, well, why would Mary Jane see anything in Eddie Brock per se? And if I actually had access to the comics and could read, I would find out. But Spider-Man and Venom working together seemed really cool to me because Venom seemed really, really powerful. So they did a good job, I guess, in the artwork in trying to portray that sense of power in Venom, and you can see it throughout the Maximum Carnage story. You know, there's times when Venom will do things, you're like, wait a minute, Carnage is supposed to be stronger than Venom, right? So how is Venom able to pull off some of these moves?
Destroy these
But the idea that one of your bad guys, and I had not watched Dragon Ball, where this is a thing that happens all the time, and my favorite character from Dragon Ball, Piccolo, is an example of that. But this whole idea of, oh yeah, I'm going to team up with one of my villains. It's like, that was completely new to me. I was like, wait a minute, that would be awesome, because this guy's really strong. As long as he's just doing reasonably good stuff instead of this crap that we're, instead of the crap that we're dealing with, and he's doing right now, trying to kill Spider-Man and killing people who get in the way of him killing Spider-Man. That sounds much better.
Well, my friends, this is where we part ways.
And Maximum Carnage gives that to you. So another thing about Maximum Carnage is it combines my three favorite Marvel characters in some way or another, even though Venom and Captain America never cooperate. Over the course of the story, they never run into each other. I don't know if that was Captain America's choice, or if that was supposed to be some sort of commentary by the writers. Because you can see I have no problem putting them together on this team with Carol Danvers here, as we've been doing throughout this game. But the writers of Maximum Carnage believed, other than just writing a Spider-Man story that lasted for 14 issues,
I win again.
And probably there wasn't enough story for 14 issues. They believed they were writing a story about values. The values of Uncle Ben, the great power, great responsibility values, the Spider-Man, classic Spider-Man values, versus the, we really could just kill these guys and solve this problem.
Nice try, tough guy.
Values of Venom and the writers want you to see that Spider-Man's values are the correct ones. I'm not sure they make the best case for that in Maximum Carnage. And the reason I say that is because I think if you sit down and read Maximum Carnage, honestly, you're probably going to agree with Venom's need to kill Cassidy to end things. As a very pragmatic thing to do, and in that way, Black Cat, who's in the story, is the surrogate for the audience, because she's conflicted between what she knows about Spider-Man and her own sort of path as an anti-hero. And so, Spider-Man's at his least comfortable when his team is Venom, Morbius, and Black Cat, with the occasional assistance of Cloak. Cloak, who sort of falls more in Spider-Man's lines, except that he's sort of the apparent killing of Dagger sort of drives him over the edge for a while, so he's sympathetic to Venom's view of how to deal with Carnage. But he shouldn't be. He's just emotionally messed up. Spider-Man is much more comfortable, even though the situation is not as good, toward the end of the run, when his team is himself, or when his team is Firestar, Captain America, Deathlock, Iron Fist, because these are characters whose value sets better fit with his. So, you know, and Spider-Man gets to the point where he's willing to face Carnage and his crew by himself toward the end as a distraction. I think you've noticed one thing. We finally unlocked Miss Marvel's last costume, so I've switched over to Venom as the main. And I think he'll probably be the main through the rest of the playthrough. So if you like Venom, you're going to see a lot of symbiote-related stuff, particularly as I try to figure out what Venom's abilities are, because this is... like, Spider-Man's web bullets are an easy thing to use. And so I pretty much just use them exclusively when I'm Spider-Man. Miss Marvel's photon bolts, and then just hitting people. Pretty easy to figure out. Captain America can throw his shield, but he can also bash people with his shield. That's not hard to figure out. Venom's symbiote powers are a little more fiddly. So we're going to go open this door. And I'm going to finish this Maximum Carnage discussion next time. When we move into hyperdrive. So I'll see you then.
I tried to warn you.
Right.
If you say so.